moving into what are common objections and how can you handle them?
We talked a lot about how to handle objections.
Well, what's a common objection? I mean, they're pretty standard.
I can't afford it.
You're too expensive.
They're too expensive. I'm happy with who I have. I don't know how many times I've been on quotes and I'm happy with who I have. I'm like, that's interesting. Why am I standing here then? In my head, I'm thinking that. If
I say it out loud.
What's going on?
I say it out loud.
I mean,
if they invite me in, dude, and I'm like, hey,
I've had those where I walk through and the building's completely clean.
Yeah.
Like it's super clean.
Yeah.
And we get to the conference room, or they try to like hush you out the door. Like, oh, I got a couple questions. You know, a place we can sit down?
Yep.
And then they kind of regard it because they're like sold. And then I'll ask, the place looks really good. I don't even know why we're here.
Right.
Why do you think we're here? Well, you know why we're here, because when we came in, they bring their kids in the building, and I can't have that.
Right. Or they left the door unlocked.
Yeah.
Or somebody, they stole something.
Or we found out that they hired illegals, and there's a problem with that. And,
yeah.
But nobody else ever said anything to them. They just usher them out the door. And, the other questions that could come with that, well, tell me why that becomes a problem. Well, if they find out that I hired them and they're just not doing a good job bringing their kids in here, I might lose my job. Okay, well, so you want to make a change?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, well, that's fine. And there's many times we leave those instances, and then they call us back in. We're like, hey, can you come back? We really need to go that route.
Well, to your point, where an objection would be like, well, we're really happy with who we have. We're just looking for a better price. First of all, you should be qualifying that out or disqualifying them before you even show up. But because you have to extract pain in that first, conversation with them before you schedule a meeting. Like, why am I coming out? What do you hope I can help you with?
And that, again, is having the questions written down. Because so many times when you're on the phone, they're just so excited to set the appointment that you just set the appointment and you're like, all right, it's Thursday at 2. I can't wait for Thursday at 2 to come up. Then you show up and you're like, huh?
And then you show up and it's a candy shop.
Yeah. Or you show up and the place is huge and you only have 3 workers and you're like,
yeah,
this is a waste of my time.
Actually, that's probably worse than the candy shop.
Yeah, I'd rather show up to, you show up to a 5-story building and they're like, well, I need all this done. I need the exterior windows and all this. And you're like, oh, hold on. I didn't ask any of those questions about the scope of work. What do you need done? What do you got to have now? Why you're interested. How did you find out about us? So there should be a whole bunch of questions that you qualify first.
Right.
And then they get you to spending 2 to 3 hours before you show up at an appointment, like hitting the internet, searching your LinkedIn, seeing who the people is, go on Facebook, search the guy out, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it certainly is worse squandering away a good opportunity than it is going to a candy store. You got
unless you really like candy.
Well, and I'm going to say this: there's one little nugget that you can take away from the objections. So, one of my favorite techniques is never to answer an unasked question.
Amen to that.
Like, I love that rule. And it's not one that I can take any credit for. It's just one that I use a lot. But here's what that would look like, right? Somebody says, well, you say it. You're too expensive.
You're too expensive. That's not a question.
Well, and you can see what I'm doing right now. I'm not answering anything, right? So I'm just going to stare at him. Just going to stare at him. And then eventually Greg's going to say something. And he's going to be like, well, what can you do about that? Well, that's a great question.
Are you guys too expensive?
I'm a little confused because you said that these were all the things you were struggling with and that if we could solve your problem and demonstrate how much it was going to cost to do the work, that we would be able to have a conversation about it. So is it over? Like, are we done? And they're like, no. I need to, and you wouldn't believe the kind
and
of...
there's so much psychology wrapped around that, too.
You wouldn't believe the kind of answers you get out of that. It'd be like, well, but I have to go to my boss and say that I at least tried to get a lower price. Like all these things that come up, and I'm like, okay, so ultimately the price is fine. The number is good. It's just that what do we normally do? Your price is too high. Well, wait, let's assume that I could get it down to like 10%.
Yeah, you got the car dealership thing with the
so let me go back to my manager and see what I can do.
If you could do it for this, would you be doing it for this today? Would you take it today?
These are the things that we've been taught by bad salespeople how to behave, right? And that's something that we need to get away from. Where if you're a sales manager or you have somebody out selling for you, whatever you want to call yourself, you're a business owner and you're managing a salesperson, you've got to give them some space to be able to negotiate, right? And because if somebody, goes to a salesperson and says, you're too expensive, and you give them the dead stare, and they just,
they're just like, duh, and they walk out.
And they're like, okay, well, you're not answering. Well, you didn't ask me anything, And they're like,
they take it way too literal.
And they're like, well, no, I'm just saying, like, but that salesperson who's been given permission to like not say anything back and not immediately like, well, if we could do it for 10% less, would we do it? That person still needs to be able to negotiate somewhere. So there needs to be a pocket that sales manager or business owner says,
well, they need to know beforehand.
This is your high. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. This is your high number. This is your low number. This is your sweet spot. We need to be somewhere in here. And they need to be able to say, well, I'm paying $2,800 a month right now, and you guys are at 32. Can you do that? And you're going to say, no, you're at 32. I'm at 32. You're at 28. Like, I'm going to be. I'm going to have to be at 3,000. If we're at 3, are we done? Yeah. There has to be something there. Other objections. I've heard things like, you're a franchising company. I don't want to work with you. There's things that we specifically work on in that area. Other objections. It's usually price.
It's usually price.
And we just have to stand strong, and we have to.
And by having your data too, though, like actually bidding it correctly, going
demonstrating it,
and like we're talking about here, like first impressions matter. I think one of the biggest things about first impressions with us is we want to measure your building. I don't know how many times I've been on group walks with other companies, like 10 other companies, and they just look around, and then at the end they're like, "How much square footage is this?"
Yeah.
Oh, it's like 10,000. Okay, great, thank you. And we're like, can we get 30 minutes? And I need to walk with somebody, and we just need to do the measurements just to make sure everything's good. And then they're like, whoa. Okay, I got it.
So no judgment to anyone who's watching this or listening to it right now, but I encourage anyone to leave a comment about how many times, or have you ever done that before, right? Versus measuring the building completely. So if you have done that, make a comment about it. Or if you've experienced that and you've been the measurer, what has been the outcome? Like just getting an idea of what that all looks like, because it does happen a lot. And I think the main reason why people kind of push back on the measuring thing is like the prospect doesn't want me to be at their building for an hour. And I'm like, well, did you ask them?
Yeah, did you ask them? Because maybe they're like, no one's ever done that before.
Bingo.
Because I know, like, I had my yard done. And the first guy came in, he's like, well, let me look at it. He walks back out, walks in the backyard. It's not that big. And he's like, walks back out, throws me a price. And I'm like, okay. The second guy comes out, measures everything, measures how much grass, how much sprinkler heads he's going to need, all this stuff. Doesn't necessarily tell me what he's going to need. And he's like, it's going to be this. His was higher.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't trust that guy. I don't know what it's going to look like.
No.
He didn't even take time to even care about what the surroundings were. And that's the same aspect we do with janitorial, is so many people just don't care. And for us, we know it matters whether a room has carpet or whether it has flooring. If I have hard floor, it's 2 steps. It's vacuuming and mopping it, or sweeping it and mopping it, where carpet's just vacuuming it.
Yeah.
So be a professional. They don't expect us to be a professional. They do not expect us to be a professional.
They don't. And look, if there's one thing you can do to differentiate yourself in this space with potential clients is to go, watch the video that Greg has on YouTube about how to measure, and get all the tools and practice measuring at one of your existing buildings or at a friend's building or something, because you need to be able to do it efficiently. Right. So you shouldn't be rolling in there and taking hours and hours and hours.
You shouldn't have a tape measure.
No. And in past pods that we've done, we talked about, it's probably like pod 3 or 2 or something. We measured 7 buildings, like all together was like 1 million square feet or something like that
in a day.
We did that in 2 days.
Was it 2 days?
It was 2, and only because of the distance between sites.
Yeah, there was somewhere pretty far.
But we did. So so we've learned how to be extremely efficient. Now, it took a week to put all the measurements together, but we at least got all the measurements done. Anyway.
That's the hard part.